what I would focus on is always protecting the integrity of the person, the autonomy, because when people lose their sense of autonomy and their integrity, they just give up. They start giving up, like for example, with my grandpa, when I drive with mommy down to Kendall to Baptist, I tell the doctor ahead of time, do not speak in front of him as if he's not there. And if you don't speak Spanish, you need to bring a nurse or someone that speaks Spanish.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carline Cadet Francois. You know, I am dedicated to helping you succeed in caregiving. If you are new here, welcome. I help busy professionals open and operate successful assisted living buildings throughout the state of Florida. Today, I am so super excited to bring you my guest today. So excited to talk about legal tips every assisted living facility owner should know. She is an attorney. Miss Sonia Muñoz Gallagher is an attorney. She is highly motivated entrepreneur and attorney with a diverse background. Fluent in Spanish, Sonia has been an attorney for over 20 years. Has worked as an analyst at the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, a translator intern at the Hague International Court, served as a judicial clerk in probate court, counseled numerous foreign nationals through the process of establishing an LLC in the US, and served as a house counsel for 8 years. She firmly believes in empowering others. As an attorney and consultant, Sonia helps entrepreneurs and families create and protect and transfer generational wealth. Oh my God. That is so amazing. Did you hear that bio? Okay.
That's amazing. I couldn't believe it.
Oh
Wow.
my God. That is so amazing, Sonia. We started up the conversation before we actually pressed the record button, and I am super excited to let you in the conversation. Miss Sonia, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm attorney Sonia Muñoz Gallagher. I own Family Wealth Law, a law practice in Florida where I specialize in what Carline said, helping families grow, protect, and transfer generational wealth. So I work with a lot of business owners and a lot of parents that want to protect what matters most to them: their children, their real estate, and their businesses. And today we're going to talk about exactly that for the assisted living facility community. I'm happy to be here.
My goodness. So I know we've had several meetings before where we just connect and learn about each other, but what does that really mean for someone listening and they're like, oh my God, I have an assisted living, or I want to open an assisted living. I have little children. And, even in the Bible, it says a wise man leave wealth for the next generation. What does that mean? How do I do that? And what are the pieces specifically that you use to help me achieve those things?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So I really try not to speak in legalese, which is like the language that attorneys tend to use, because there's no need for it. I like to break down very complex things into plain English.
And I just want to say thank you for that, because I will be the one saying, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's so good that you're brave to ask those questions, because that's how we learn, right? I teach my kids, there's no stupid question. And I really mean it. You have to question everything, number one, and you have to ask even the questions that you think are dumb, because it means that a lot of people have that same question, but they're not bold enough, or they're shy, or they're just scared to look a certain way, and they don't ask. And then we all end up not knowing. So I'm always the first one to raise my hand, even like in tours and stuff. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm known for asking the hard questions and making people think. I love that. So any question that pops up, you just ask Carline. No
Thank
problem.
you.
So, okay, in plain English, what does it mean that I help people to build, protect, and transfer generational wealth? I help them build that by helping them create a business that is legally solid in Florida, that is secure, that is protected as much as possible, and that you are protected personally too. In the assisted living facility world, there's certain issues that pop up that don't pop up, let's say, in a digital program class world, So that's what I do to help you create. And then to help you protect, that has to do with like trademarks, contracts, copyright law, things that help you basically to keep your business running legally, licenses, permits, etc. And then how to transfer that wealth is basically, it's called estate planning, but it's basically, in plain English, what typically people think of as, oh, a will. Oh, okay, a will. Well, actually, no. In Florida, a will doesn't really do what we expect it to do. It's more used, or it's more valuable for people that want to secure a guardian for their minor child. But if it's a business person that we know wants to save money, wants to keep that business running, if they are disabled, if they're in a car accident, or if they pass away and can obviously not run their business, a trust comes into place. And a trust keeps that business entity out of the probate system, out of the probate court system. The probate court system can be very complicated, can be very expensive for the survivors, and very stressful, and can end up in bankrupting the company. Because think about it, if you own an assisted living facility and your business has to go through probate so that your spouse can be able to run it, or so that your adult child can run it, think about who's going to be paying that nurse, who's going to be paying those, that rent, the vendors, the food, the dietitian that comes in, etc. So all of those things are things that people don't think about when they're looking to buy or create an assisted living facility or even run it. So these are all things that, we can do to protect. And that's what I'm here to kind of teach about in plain English today.
Wow. I'm super excited to dive in. But at first, and thank you for explaining that so well. But I'm wondering, how did you get into the world? We read your bio. You've done some amazing things. How did this whole journey get started? How did you choose to help and to do the things that you do today?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. So let me see. Let me break it down. It's been 21 years now. So during law school, I worked for free as part of a clinic protecting women that were victims of abuse, typically by their spouses. And I put those spouses in jail. And that's like one of the biggest, most amazing things I've been able to do as an attorney. And actually, I wasn't an attorney yet. I was a law student, but that's one of the things I'm proudest of. After that, I worked as a clerk for the probate judge in Gainesville, where I went to law school. I went to school in University of Florida, and I loved it. Got to be in chambers while the probate hearings were going on. I got to see basically Jerry Springer episodes live in front of me. It was madness sometimes. Loved that, but my passion was always immigration law. And at the time, I was trilingual. I spoke French fluent because I was a student at the University of Montpellier in France. French was my minor. I worked with a lot of Haitian clients and a lot of Canadians, and did a lot of work in French. You don't use it, you lose it. It's a real thing. So now, oh my goodness, it's very limited. But I did that for a few years, had my own law firm, got people out of removal, and worked with a lot of investors. And that is what made me go into business law. I worked with foreign investors that were coming in and wanted the investor visa. And then I would help them establish, their businesses here. So that was the taste of business, and I loved it. And after that, I did that for a while. Then I had my daughter, and then my husband started an audiovisual engineering company. that I was in-house counsel for. In-house counsel is basically a legalese word that says I was the attorney for that company for years. And then he pivoted in the company and the kids got older. I had a second child, Gianluca, and I said, you know what? Now it's my time. I want my time again. I want my law firm. I don't want to be, I was mommy. Of course, I'm going to be mommy forever, forever. And that's the best, most wonderful thing I've ever done in my life, ever. But now it's Sonia time. I think that you reach a point in your life, I'm in my 40s now, that you're like, all right, put that show on me. Get that microphone, girl. Take it back. And everybody's fine because mommy's fine,
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's also the reason why I chose estate planning, because I found myself doing presentations about wills, even though that wasn't really what I was practicing. And I was kind of just, I think God just put me in that path because it's not litigious. I don't do contested probate. I send that to another counsel. I'm able to guide people. I'm able to use my psychology background because I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I use that every single day because this is very sensitive, what we talk about, Families have issues. It's not just business issues. It's family dynamic issues. There's addictions, there's gambling problems, there's spouses that they don't think are going to be a good influence. So the parent wants to protect the child from a potential divorce. And those are all things that we can protect against through trust. So I went from the defense side, doing corporate litigation and doing immigration removal hearings, to the preemptive, protective counselor side. And I absolutely love it. And I'm so open with clients, and this is who I am. I don't have to like be pompous or whatever. So I find that clients really connect with me because of that. They're able to talk to me and cry with me because I also do probate, and we know those can be really sad. When you get older, life gets harder. And if you're blessed to have someone that wants to take care of you, then what we do is we want to make it the easiest possible for that person that is being the caregiver. So, that's also why I chose this, because my grandfather, my love, my heart, is 100 years old. Mommy takes care of him, and she's in Doral, and I go to Doral every chance I get. And if abuelo has to go to the ER or anything, I go as many times as I can, which is why I love being able to work from home. And then I also have a daughter that is now 14, started high school this week, and she's on the spectrum. She asked me, Mommy, I think I'm on the spectrum. Please have me assessed.
Wow.
When she was like 12.
Wow. Smart
Yeah.
girl. Smart girl.
She's what they call level 1 support. So it's like high functioning, what used to be called Asperger, but they changed the name. So she is verbal, extremely intelligent. She has other needs. When they're high functioning, it's more of an emotional regulation, social oversaturation. But she's great. I mean, she's a leader. That child is an advocate.
A beautiful soul.
She's she's my teacher. She's my sage. She's she and Gianluca's amazing. He's like a little baby Buddha. Nothing bothers him.
So amazing.
It's incredible.
So amazing. So amazing. I love that. This video is brought to you by the Florida Assisted Living and Caregivers Conference. It is an annual conference for all those who want to open an assisted living right here in Florida. We bring you all of the who's that will help you achieve your ALF. We have caregivers, we have people that already have their assisted living up and running, and they are here for resources. We have caregivers caring for mom and dad at home, but lack resources, so they show up for more resources. We have investors that are in the room looking for partnerships because they don't necessarily want to manage, but they are looking for someone to do the day-to-day while they can do the other investments. We also bring to you all of the sub-industries, those providers that help you get your ALF up and running, the providers that will come to your ALF to provide services to your seniors. We bring everyone in the room for the first time. This event normally sells out. Click the link in the description and I will see you in the room. I love that. And I share that same thought with you because kids are the best. They are the ones that push us to become. And I love how you talk about your journey on, you know, the things that you've done and how you helped. You were the attorney for your own family's business, right? And you took care of everybody while you build the family structure, you build the business structure. And then now everybody is grown and you're like, this is you time and you deserve that. There has to be a time in life when we ladies, people who bring life into the world, a caregiver to our own families, and like you mentioned, you're a caregiver to your grandfather. I'm pretty sure you also lend a caregiving hand to other people who may not be immediate family or even family by blood, right? I feel like once you are a caregiver, you're a caregiver to everybody. Regardless of where you go, you're going to find someone to help because that's what you enjoy doing. When it comes to caring for your grandfather and seeing the things that he goes through and seeing what it's like to be a caregiver, how does that impact the way that you serve the caregiving industry?
With a lot of empathy and a lot of patience. So, fun fact that I didn't tell you that I just thought about because it was a little long ago. When I was 17 in high school, I went to North Miami Senior High. They didn't have enough classes for me, basically. I was already done, but I finished school early. And mommy said, no, you're not going to college yet because you're too young. Okay. So, Puerto Rican mom. So they found an internship program for me at Villa Maria Nursing Home, which is right there on 135th Street. It's still there.
Wow.
125th. And I volunteered there. I was an intern and I used to do psychosocials there. And then I loved it so much. I ended up volunteering more days, more hours. And then I got a job there as the recreational therapist on Saturday mornings.
Wow,
So yeah,
that is so amazing.
Caregiving has been in me, and then I just protect, like I'm very protective. So I protect through the law, and my bachelor is psychology. That's caregiving, but I don't have the patience no, I don't have the patience for that. I'm more of a get it done and I need to see results. So this type of law is perfect. I use the psychology, I use the caregiving, but then we need to see some steps. We need to get protected.
Yes, that is true. That is true. And one aspect of what my caregivers are doing that sometimes they overlook because they are caregivers. And so they focus on caring for people, adding value. I mean, they can close their eyes and take care of their seniors perfectly, but then other sides of their business is neglected because they are not like business savvy yet. There's something that they're learning. And so people like you bring different sets of value to my people because they then realize, oh, I didn't know I needed to do X, Y, Z. And now you're able to teach them that they can do it. And not only that, you're able to implement that for them. So I absolutely love that you do that. But what is one thing that ALF owners don't realize about the legal side of running, establishing a business, and actually running the operation of the day-to-day of the business as well?
Okay, so let's talk about the protection part. There's a lot of liability in running an assisted living facility. Why? Because you, number one, are taking care of people. And number two, are having people come in and out of your venue. So there's a lot of things that you are vulnerable to. So let's take for an example, somebody that starts an assisted living facility quickly because, they love it. They've got connections. They know that it worked out for a friend. So now they're in it to win it. But they don't have a solid legal foundation because maybe they don't even know they need that or that even exists. Okay. So all they did was create the LLC on Sunbiz, but that's it. There's absolutely nothing else. There's no operating agreement. Okay. So that's number one. You need an operating agreement. And they're not even establishing a separate business account. Oh, that's a big no-no. If somebody falls in that venue, they're going to be coming after you because we all know how many attorneys there are in Florida. And we know personal injury is based on contingency. So it doesn't cost a thing to go to a personal injury attorney. It's a free consultation. And if they don't win, they don't get paid. So it costs the person nothing. So because you have a physical location, that's your number one thing that you have to worry about. If somebody falls out of a bed, a patient falls off out of a bed, that family is coming after you. Think about it. If a dietitian comes in with food to deliver, a vendor, comes in to deliver anything and there's water or there's anything, it doesn't even have to be that there was something and they fall in your venue, that's a lawsuit. So there's specific things that you have to protect yourself. So number one, you have to have an LLC. You cannot be doing this, through just your name. Number two, you have to have an EIN number. You get the EIN number from the IRS after you establish your LLC. Okay. After that, you go to the bank with your letter, your SS4, which is the letter from the IRS giving you your EIN number. That's when you go to the bank, you show your articles of incorporation, the document that you have access to on sunbiz.org. You bring that, you bring your ID showing that that's you on those records, and you show your EIN, your SS4 letter from the IRS. And that's what allows you to open up a business bank account. Now, the most important thing is not to commingle money. Commingle money means mixing it up. One of the jobs I had when I was a younger attorney, when I was starting out, was called commercial litigation. I used to have to sue people and pierce the corporate veil. What does pierce the corporate veil mean? It means find a lot of ways through documentation to sue the person individually, personally, sue the owner individually so that they attach to the lawsuit. So it's not just the ALF, it would be the person, the owner. Okay. So that is what you want to protect against. Okay. So you do that by never commingling your funds. So what does that mean? If you're going to paint your venue, if you're going to do any repairs to your venue, what are you going to do? Are you going to use your own money or are you going to use a credit card for the business, right? You use the credit card for the business and you keep the receipts in your records. Okay, so that's one very easy, but you would be surprised at how many people commingle. I understand because it's a lot to keep track of all the expenses, especially at the beginning when there's no income. You're just like, where do I get this money? And then whatever money shows up, you're going to use it to make the house habitable, right? So that's a very big gold nugget right there that you guys can do yourselves without needing an attorney. You can handle that yourselves. You just have to make sure that you don't commingle. Okay, so you don't combine your accounts, your expenses, and your income, and you keep track of everything. Another thing is you have to have contracts for everybody. You have to have an agreement with each patient of everything that is going to be included so that you can protect against scope creep. What does scope creep mean? It means that people will abuse in some terms and basically maybe not know. So, some people are abusive, so they try to get as much as possible. And some people just frankly, truthfully just don't know. So This contract is what lays out the terms, creates the expectations, and it creates the boundaries. Expectations for the buyer, for the patient and their family, and then boundaries for you, limitations. Is this going to be a 24-hour nurse situation? Is this going to be a 5 meals a day situation versus 3 meals versus, the luxury versus the basic? That is where you put all of those elements. And that is where you put the venue of where any type of litigation would happen, what state law, obviously it would be Florida, applies, etc. So those are the agreements. So the agreement would be for the vendors. The agreement would be for any independent contractor that you have, making sure that they understand they are an independent contractor. And then that way you are also protecting yourself, because we know there's a big difference between an independent contractor and an employee. And you can get in big trouble if you start crossing boundaries into the employee world, trying to make them exclusive, trying to control their schedule when they are in fact only an independent contractor, which we know a lot of owners, that's the way they do it, because that way you save a lot of money. So, these are things that I help owners with, things that you don't really think about because you are working on the job, on the business, not or in the business rather. And my job as the attorney is to work on your business as a partner with you to help you protect it while you do what you do best, which is the caregiving, So that's how I partner with businesses. And then it's not just with ALFs, like I've got medical professionals that I work with on the regular, that I create real estate agreements, that I create vendor agreements, patient agreements, etc. And then, so that's the protection part for your wealth, right? Now we're going to talk about the transfer of wealth and creating. So we create, we protect, and then we transfer the generational wealth. How do we do that? Through estate planning. Estate planning for business owners is incredibly important. If you don't have the legal mechanisms in place, the durable power of attorney, the trust, if you don't have those things in place, then your business is in like a pause if you pass away or if you become disabled, because then the person that is second in charge basically has to go to court and petition the court for a special permission just to be able to pay the rent, to pay the vendors, to pay the electricity. Think about it. You've got patients there. These are things that are essential, that even though painting and making the place look really pretty and attractive and, all that's essential, yes, for the operation part, but this is super essential as well, because what good is it if it's painted and pretty if you're not going to be able to run it?
Absolutely. Wow, you said so much here. I know that a lot of our caregivers, I had a conversation with one yesterday, commingles. Basically, your personal account or personal monies along with your business monies, and then your personal bills from your business account, and you're paying your business accounts from your personal, your pretty much wherever the money is in whatever account, you use it. Please don't do that. You just heard from the attorney that you cannot do that, because she worked as an attorney who sued people. Okay.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. I was on the other side. I was the attacker. Now I'm the protector. Yeah.
And she's letting you know what she used to pierce the corporate veil, right? Meaning she looks for ways, when she was on that other side, she looked for ways to actually say, not only am I going to sue the business, but there are evidence that I can also sue you as the operator as the individual as well. So now she'll get money from the business, and then she'll come after your personal assets, your personal, if you have a home, if you have cars, if you have other monies, she's coming after that too. And she's letting you know what she used as evidence against people. So now if you know that in advance, don't do it, right?
Exactly.
And even beyond that, schedule a call and get to speak to her and learn, what else am I doing that I am not supposed to be doing? Like she mentioned, the operating agreement, for example, different things like that. What does that mean? Now, for licensed assisted livings and group homes and different care type industries, the Agency for Healthcare Administrations have a list of requirements that you have to have. For example, the agreements, the resident agreement. But she's also mentioning, let's say you come to me and I helped you open your ALF, and I'll give you your forms, your packages, which would include the resident agreement. But now she's saying, even beyond the resident agreement, you need to have other agreements with your independent contractors, with your people that's coming, different people that will provide different services to your setting. You want to make sure that you are fully protected. I also know that we have to have liability insurance and different type of bonds depending on the services that you provide. But I'm saying this to say, even with all of the perimeters that the Agency for Healthcare Administration put together, these are the minimums, right? These are the minimum requirements. You still need a lot more than that to make sure that your ALF is protected. Now, Attorney Sonia also mentioned that legal entities that will protect you as the administrator or the operator. When I tell you we had a caregiver at the podcast, and you could look and find that video, and she was talking about how she was having the hardest time because she was not the power of attorney or the healthcare surrogate for her stepdad. She is a caregiver for her mom and her stepdad. And then when it came to her stepdad, for her to be able to access his account, pay bills for him, like she went through, I don't like to say the word hell, but she went through so much just to be able to help him. What can you tell us a little bit more about what that means and what it would entail, and can you give us some examples so that the point can come across?
Okay, so yeah, that's a really good thing to talk about. I am part of what's called the sandwich generation, in my 40s, older parent, blessed with a 100-year-old grandpa. And then I've got my little ones, my 8-year-old and my 14-year-old. So life is super, super full and tiring, but in such a blessed way, because I know that when I get older, it gets lonely. It's lonely to get older, so I remind myself of that when I wake up at 3 a.m, thinking about the to-do list for the next day. So I work with a lot of people in this age group, and I'm sure a lot of you are in this same sandwich where we have young kids, and then we also have our elderly and aging parents. One of the most common things that I talk about with people is that when you give a health directive to somebody, it doesn't mean that the person is not able to speak for themselves. It's only used if the person is not able to speak for themselves. And that's really important because as a minority, I'm Latina, I'm Puerto Rican. There's a lot of stuff that comes with culture. There's a lot of taboo. You don't want to talk about death. You don't want to lose your autonomy. And machismo is real. I get it. I get it. I am very familiar with it. And that is why, this is what I tell my clients. That is why I am so passionate about power of attorneys and about health directives. And this is why. A health directive gives you the power to protect your own integrity. It gives you a voice when you are not able to speak. It allows somebody that you trust to be your advocate when you are in need. So if you, for example, do not ever want a blood transfusion, or do not ever want to be intubated, or do not want to be resuscitated, those are all things that you have the power to choose. And hospitals have specific protocols that they go by if you don't have a health directive. And those are things that people don't know. So that is the power in having the health directive for the elder, for the aging person, and just person for the client. And then for the individual that is the caregiver, that makes their life so much simpler, so much easier. Having the health directive, they can take you to the hospital, to the specialist, to the laboratory. They can get access to your records. They can bring the records from one hospital to another if you're going to go get a second opinion. If you have a long-term condition, we know, like cancer, for example, we know there's a lot of doctors involved. There might be a urologist, a palliative care doctor, an oncologist, depending on cardiologist, depending on what your needs are, endocrinologist too, because you kick diabetes in there also. I mean, it's just so many people. And sometimes they might be in the same system, like let's say Baptist or regional or whatever, right? They might be in the same system, but they might be in different buildings. You don't have to be worrying about, oh my gosh, what did Dr. So-and-so say last week? I don't remember. And let's say that they don't have access to the record. They should have access to the record because it's the same hospital. But let's say they don't. You have it. You have it in front of you. You have the access to that. And then it's way more important if you're changing hospitals, changing systems, or if you have specialists that are in different systems. Let's say you are at the Jackson system for the cardiologist, but you're at Mount Sinai for another. That's two people, that's two different specialists that need to communicate and have records of the patient. So those are all things that could cost the patient their life. Think about it, all it takes is having a cardiac problem, and then the anesthesiologist isn't aware that the cardiologist said no. Like just minor things like that can be prevented by having the healthcare directive. And then the durable power of attorney is even more important because it covers everything. So depending on the situation, it can be more important. So let's say that oh my gosh, it can cover everything. It can cover everything. I actually work with a lot of foreign nationals, given the current situation with immigrants. I work with a lot of foreign nationals that are green card holders, visa holders, and no status holders, and they come to me to protect their family and to protect their real estate. And we all know that as immigrants, we tend to be business owners. We work really hard, So that's also where a durable power of attorney comes in, because if they're detained or if they're deported, that person that they leave in control through that durable power of attorney can help them. So it's not just for people if they're disabled or if they are out of the state or out of the country, it could also be for immigrants. So it's just a really necessary legal tool for anybody, that wants to have someone else be able to speak and act on their behalf when they're not able to. And it can be as limited or as comprehensive as you want it to be.
Now, you mentioned, I mean, wow, it's just so beautifully said, because the times that we're in, a lot of people are having anxiety when it comes to their immigration status. And so amazing to hear you have knowledge on how you can help them protect themselves so that their loved ones can be able to help them, God forbid something do happen to their legal status or to them, for example. And I know culturally also that I'm Haitian. And so in the Haitian culture that we take care of our elders, right? I know that is something that not all of us are able to do. And so being that you are a sandwich generation, you are a lawyer, you're an attorney, and you know how to use the law to protect. But even outside of the law, how do you have conversations? Let's say, for example, mom expected me to care for her, but life happened to me. I'm not able to take care of her. How do I begin to have that conversation? And how do I let her know that we need these documentation before dementia kicks in? And how do we have those hard conversations? Any advice for my caregivers? Because that is something that all of my caregivers struggle with.
Okay, so what I would focus on is always protecting the integrity of the person, the autonomy, because when people lose their sense of autonomy and their integrity, they just give up. They start giving up, you know? Like, for example, with my grandpa, when I drive with mommy down to Kendall to Baptist, I tell the doctor ahead of time, do not speak in front of him as if he's not there. And if you don't speak Spanish, you need to bring a nurse or someone that speaks Spanish, because I want, even though he understands English, I want all of this information to be in his language, because he doesn't need to be translating at this moment. And do not ever speak to me or my mom as if he's not there, because that's extremely disrespectful. And I actually have done that for my children too, since they were babies. I would tell the pediatrician ahead of time, when you speak to my child, you speak to my child. Obviously, I'm the decision maker, but I'm very, like black and white about that. That's a human. You need to treat the human with respect. It doesn't matter if the human is 9 months old or 99. That's how I feel about life, So
I just want to say, I love that. I love that so much, because we had another episode, and you could look at that video, where we have an activity director, she used to be, but right now she finds ways to bring life back to our seniors, to find, I know, it's so heartwarming to hear how she think outside of the box and she creates these activities. Catch that video and reach out to her. One of the things that she mentioned was exactly that. She doesn't want you or anyone to speak about a senior person when the person is sitting right there. Talk to them, right? Involve them in the conversation. And it's part of the dignity. I think they deserve that.
That's the word. It's not integrity, it's dignity. Yes, that is the word. Yes. When you protect the person's dignity, you're protecting them, and you are doing the best you can for their soul, for their spirit, because they feel like they're still somebody. Yeah, so that's super important. And then the caregivers, like what you asked, how do caregivers talk to their patients and to their parents about that, about asking them, please sign this power of attorney? You can speak about that. You can say, Mommy, this power of attorney can only be used if you allow me to use it, and my goal in presenting this to you is to always protect your dignity, is to always be your advocate, always, because I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me. I mean, that's what I would tell my mom, that I call mommy even in my 40s, and I always will.
That's beautiful.
And that's what I say to clients, when I have clients that are a little bit like, I don't want a power of attorney, then I explain, okay, legally, medically, this is what it does. It says this, and this, which is what you want. Legally, it allows so and so to speak for you if you cannot speak. Only if you cannot speak. And then what is the kicker that people don't know is that elderly, or it doesn't have to be elderly, because there's young people in guardianship, when you have a durable power of attorney, the judge, and this is like an insider knowledge thing, because I actually learned it from a judge. at a symposium I went to earlier this year on elder law. When there's a guardianship case in front of a judge and the ward has a durable power of attorney, that guardianship is very likely to not be approved, because the judge is going to go to that durable power of attorney and say, there's a durable power of attorney. Why do you want a guardianship over this individual? Because when somebody has a guardianship, they lose every single right. They lose everything. So in order to protect against ever having a potential guardianship, you can make a durable power of attorney. And you don't have to wait until you're in your 80s or 90s or whatever. You can have that. I create that as part of the estate plan for a lot of people in their 40s that are in that sandwich generation. So I end up doing work for their parents or someone who passed away. I do the probate for that. And then they realize, oh, wow, I don't want to leave that mess for my children. And I want a durable power of attorney to protect against the guardianship. So then I end up doing the estate plan for them. And then I end up helping the whole family. So I end up being the attorney for the whole family.
And that's how you know you serve them well.
Yes.
That's exactly how you know. I love how you explain things in lamest terms so that it clicks. Because sometimes some words can mean different things in different contexts. And I love when conversations are done in a very plain spoken way, and you do that very well.
Oh,
Now, you're welcome. You're welcome. You do that very well. Now, I know a lot of entrepreneur caregivers, they are joint venture type of business owners, and they team up with another person and they say, for example, you provide the building and then I will operate the business. And then together we open the business together and we are 50-50 splits. A lot of my clients are like that. And I actually just had one that became my client. They are a builder and they have multiple buildings to go through. Now, what are some legal structures overall? Of course, every situation, every case is different. What are legal structures and pitfalls that both parties joining together to create a business venture should avoid? What should they know? What are your advice for them?
When it's a joint venture, there's more vulnerability, because now it's not just you and your behavior, it's someone else as well. When you have a joint venture, you're even more at risk of being sued, basically. So you have to have a joint venture agreement. You have to. That is the number one and the strongest protection that I can tell you to have. And in that agreement, that is where you're going to lay out the terms, not just for the risk assessment and the, liability protection, but also what is your partner entitled to? What are your expectations of your partner? What are their expectations of you? So in those situations, I find that a lot of people think that a contract is too confrontational or too like, oh no, it's like I'm walking in with the wrong idea or thinking negatively, etc. But the thing is that contracts are not conflict. Contracts are conflict prevention and conflict protection. They are a preemptive tool that you use for if there's a conflict. Sometimes there's never a conflict. But if there is, then you can make it, you can diffuse it by saying, oh, wait a minute, let's go to the terms in the agreement. Oh, no, here in clause number 5, it says that you are responsible for that. So you have that to go to. So it protects you from looking like the bad guy. I kind of compare it to the family rules in my house or the chores list. Oh, no, it's not me. Mommy's not saying that you have to clean out the cat litter. It's the chores list. Remember? Go look in the hallway.
Yes, I know. I ended up with 2 little cats too, and I'm not cleaning no cat litter, and that's part of the rule.
That's right. That's right. I love cats though. I love them, but I'm asthmatic, so I'm not touching the cat litter.
That's amazing though, because to know that the agreement, because sometimes it's the way that we look at things, not what it
Exactly.
actually is.
Mm-hmm. The
And
perception, right? Yeah.
yes, the perception. And to know that the contract actually prevents issues. It's true. And it protects, and it's like you said, you don't have to be the bad guy or the bad lady, because we agreed on this when we both loved each other.
Right, right. When we were besties and everything was peace and love, we agreed to preserve the peace and love.
Yes, absolutely. To preserve the peace and love. And I think that is more profound than we're giving it credit. Now, if someone were to say, what is the difference between that contract that you're talking about, the joint venture contract, versus the operating agreement? Or what is the difference between the two, and how do you differentiate them?
Okay. Okay. So that's good. The operating agreement is basically a tool that protects you from personal liability. So it's one of the layers that I used to go and try to pierce when I was trying to get the individual into the lawsuit as well, right? When I was doing the commercial litigation. So it's a standard protection that you need. And what it does it talks about what the company is for, what is done, how it operates. It's the daily operations of that company. So if it's an assisted living facility, we talk about what that does. We know that it's not a restaurant. We know that it's not open to the public. If it's not, that it has restricted hours, etc. So those would be the types of things that the operating agreement handles. And the reason is to protect you individually. And then the joint venture agreement or the partnership agreement is a different thing. It's a different tool, and it's used together because it serves different purposes. What it does is it protects you from personal liability because it's more proof that it's not owned by you individually, right? And that you are working within your restricted boundary. But it also sets the parameter with your partner. It sets the expectations. It sets the conflict resolution terms. You go into so many details. It goes into what happens if we have to file bankruptcy, what happens if indemnification clauses, if we get sued.
If
What
we have to
happens
dissolve the business, for
if you have to
example.
dissolve? Exactly. How much percent goes where? What liabilities need to be paid first, etc. So it's similar to a prenuptial agreement. Think of it that way. When you marry, you do a prenup, or some people do, because they're all about peace and love. And then that way the divorce, if it happens, a lot of times it doesn't happen, but 50% of the time it happens, then the dissolution of marriage doesn't have to be so expensive, because divorces are expensive. You just go back to that agreement and then lay out the funds and the terms that were talked about when everything was peace and love. So it's a way to protect the dignity of the company, of those two partners, so it doesn't have to get crazy and ugly. And it's a mature way to do things, in my opinion. It's a responsible, mature, adulting type of way. you know and in that sense, in the psychological aspect, it gives you more confidence as an individual because it's self-respect. Think of it in that way too. You
Yes.
respect yourself enough to have a joint venture agreement, to have an operating agreement, to do things the right way, not to just be like fly by night, Mickey Mouse style. You know what I mean? I'm going to do this, and no, TikTok style or whatever, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't been on TikTok, but I get your point though. I get your point, because sometimes people get excited to have a business together, and they're going to go and change the world together. And all of that can be true, but life do happen. And if you're not properly structured, you're not properly protected, you don't have who's going to do what. And just because things are going on with you. You agreed to do this. So now if you can't do it, what happens? Are you taking responsibility? Are you looking for someone else to do? Because this is your part and this is my part. But if it's not in clear black and white language, it could be a really big mess. So I love the fact that you actually explained the difference between the two. What else should they avoid? What are some other pitfalls that they may overlook?
Well, the marketing materials can get you in trouble. So you have to be very careful with what you write on your website, with your privacy policies. You have to have specific disclaimers on your website because you're liable for your website. It's part of your business, and your marketing materials have to be legally valid. You can't be making promises that or making up testimonials, things like that. That's illegal. Just things that you as a new business owner don't really know about and do because you think it'll give you business, but at the same time you're exposing yourself to liability and somebody suing you.
Love that. Now, my next question, because I love the fact that you explain things in such a way that people really can connect with it. Can we talk about revocable trusts? Can we go into the trust aspects of things, since we're in the phase where we're talking about protecting your business, even as a joint venture partner? What are some additional things that they can do, even if it means protect themselves with more additional protection that will prevent, let's say, if my partner was negligent or if my partner didn't do what they needed to do, I did my best so that the veil didn't get pierced, but my partner probably did not care. What are some additional advice would you have? What are some choices someone like me would have?
Okay. So that's really good because I actually work with a lot of business owners on this part also, the estate planning part. And when there are more than one owner, it gets even more complicated and probate can be even more costly. So let's say that you own a assisted living facility with a partner and your partner passes away, and the business partner, not your life partner, the business partner passes away, and now you're stuck having to run the whole thing, and you can't really afford it, because you were relying, on your partner, right? So, or depending on them. And then now that partner's spouse says, oh, I can handle it. But the spouse knows nothing about the business. Okay. If you don't have a buy-sell agreement made as part of your estate plan, then you don't have any limits on who can buy it, right? So because it was half the spouses, the wife that knows nothing about this business can go into probate court, get that half of the business, and get control of that business that way, and basically tank your business because they don't know what they're doing. So for business owners in general, assisted living facilities being one of the businesses, one of the key things you have to have is inside or as part of your estate plan is the buy-sell agreement, because the buy-sell agreement explains who is able to buy, at what term, how they're able to pay it, who is not able to buy, whether they need to be licensed or not, when, at what point can they sell, because the buy-sell agreement can be used when the person wants to retire, and it's not necessarily for when they pass away. It's one of those tools that's used, to help transfer that generational wealth, but not necessarily after the owner is deceased. Okay, so that's part of the estate plan. And then to your question about revocable trusts, the revocable trust is very important for a business owner, because when you create a revocable trust, that business goes to the people that you designate to have the power over that business and to have the ownership of that business without having to go through probate court. So in Florida, this is important to know. In Florida, when someone passes away without a will or with a will, the survivors have to go through the probate court system. And that's something that people don't really know much about. They think that, oh, I have a will, so everything is fine. But no, it doesn't work that way. In Florida, the only way to get around the probate court requirement is to have a trust, a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. But irrevocable trusts are for much larger estates. So let's just stay with the revocable. The revocable trust gets funded with every asset that you have, including your real estate, your business, it's basically everything that you want to be able to give to your survivors, to your descendants. And it allows you to also, so not only does it help the beneficiaries to have a way around probate and be able to get their assets directly without the expense and the stress and the time that probate court takes, it's completely private. So there's no creditor publication or anything like that. There's no risk of creditors popping out of the woodwork, which is what happens in probate court, or people coming out of the woodwork. Oh, I'm your family member. Now I want to, contest that. And then it also protects the person, the beneficiaries themselves, because we can design the revocable trust in a way that protects. So let's say that you have an adult child that is a doctor or a nurse, and they have a liability risk because of their license, right? You can create an asset protection trust, and that protects the child, and that protects the money for that child. Or you see a potential divorce in their future. You don't like their spouse. You can design, or I would design the trust for that individual so that it goes directly to that person and doesn't get into the marital asset. So there's just so many ways. And if there's a concern about gambling or about addictions, anything like that, then there's ways to protect against that also. So a trust is a really strong and powerful tool that is used for people. And it's not just for millionaires the way that we always thought. It's for people that care about designing something that keeps their kids and their spouse out of court and keeps their money private and their assets private and protects their children, sometimes from themselves, from their own risky behavior.
So true. That is so true, because I think preparation is the best thing that we can do for ourselves, because you just never know. Things happen to people, life happens to people, and we just don't know what's going to come up. But if you have the right documentations, if you have the right paperwork, you'll be able to at least have the paperwork speak on your behalf, and now you have backup. With that said, if someone wanted to do a legal check, for example, if they wanted to know, I know for sure that I am messing up, for example, and they want to see, where do I start? For someone who don't have any of these documents in place, and they are an entrepreneur, they are about to open their own ALF, or they're in the middle of running their ALF, but they don't have any of those protection in place. Without the overwhelm, what can they start with?
Well, they can schedule a consultation, and then we would go through everything. I actually send out a questionnaire ahead of time and a list of items that they should bring so that we make the most out of our time together. And I go through everything with them. And then that's where I know, because it's so individualized, that's where I know what they already have in place and then what they even need, because sometimes they don't need, like if they are not a partnership, they don't need the joint venture agreement, but they do need an operating agreement, and they do need a vendor agreement and, independent contractor agreements, sometimes a non-compete or non-solicitation agreement, things like that, things of that nature, or even website disclaimers and website terms. So there's so many different things that come to play that's what we do during the consultation, and then we take it from there. And if they have an estate plan already in place, I can review it for them. or if they need something, like let's say they just need a power of attorney for themselves or for their parent, then we can do that, not necessarily the whole estate plan. So they can work that way.
I love that. I love that. Any other words for my audience? Any other insight? Anything else you want to share with them? This was amazing.
Oh, thank you. They can go to my website where I have free guides on operating agreements and the probate court system and estate planning for business owners and for families. And I have the guides in English and in Spanish, and they're free. They can get that there. And then they can also schedule a consultation through my website. It's right at the very top. It says schedule here or schedule consultation, and we would have a Zoom consultation. I have clients through the whole state of Florida and even out of the United States because they've got money here and I have to do their probate, so I work with everybody through Zoom. And my website is www.familywealthlaw.net.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for your time today. And guys, if you found value from this video, if you had an aha moment, if you got any type of value out of it, I want you to reach out to Attorney Sonia. Let her know that you watched the video and what was your big takeaway, right? Comment below, consider to like and subscribe, and share this video with someone who will find it valuable. We are trying to get to our first 5,000 subscribers, so we could really use your help with liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, I'm happy to serve you. I enjoy using my God's gift to serve you as a public servant, and I hope you found value in this video. Until next time, talk to you later. This video is brought to you by the Florida Assisted Living and Caregivers Conference. It is an annual conference for all those who want to open an assisted living right here in Florida. We bring you all of the who's that will help you achieve your ALF. We have caregivers, we have people that already have their assisted living up and running, and they are here for resources. We have caregivers caring for mom and dad at home, but lack resources, so they show up for more resources. We have investors that are in the room looking for partnerships because they don't necessarily want to manage, but they are looking for someone to do the day-to-day while they can do the other investments. We also bring to you all of the sub-industries, those providers that help you get your ALF up and running, the providers that will come to your ALF to provide services to your seniors. We bring everyone in the room for the first time. This event normally sells out. Click the link in the description and I will see you in the room.